Good day. Warm welcome to this meditation experience. Wonderful that you're joining. Otherwise, I'd be here talking to myself. So, really happy that you're with us. And today we're going to take on a biggie. This was requested. I'm not sure I would take it on otherwise. But it really does seem, I think we all sort of eventually figure out that perhaps the only thing that is a problem in the world today is we get in our own way, this thing that we call ego or arrogance. And in a spiritual path, we are looking at not trying to crunch it or kill it or crush it, even though it's most annoying, but that we're actually going to transform it in a very loving way. So first, to understand that the soul, every soul, each of us cannot exist without some experience of our own value, even if it's artificial. We just need it to function. It's just the way the soul is built. And so when I haven't got the real thing, which is called self-respect, then I start to develop a false sense of value, which we call ego or arrogance. And that false sense is always connected to what is temporal. So we also connect the word external validation to the feeding of ego, name, fame, recognition. So saying all this because it's nice to know the playing field. It's nice to know what the enemy looks like and functions. And I don't know, one of the most powerful ways to melt an enemy is with love. It's the last thing they expect, is to be melted with love. So the approach in the spiritual practice of Raj Yoga is transformation, not through violence, but through love, through a lot of understanding. And I'm always remembering the scene in The Wizard of Oz. Don't worry if you don't know this story. But there is this so-called Wicked Witch, I think of the West. I get it mixed up. But the Wicked Witch. And really, she's just causing a lot of annoyance through the whole storyline. There's two storylines going on, actually. One is the inner journey in order to address the outer response. So the Wicked Witch is always harassing our poor Dorothy. And what's realized at the end is that she melts when you pour water on her. It's really not. I mean, they're trying everything on this witch. The last thing they're thinking is, let's pour some water on her. But by accident, some water lands up being poured on her, and she starts to melt. The famous line, I'm melting, I'm melting. So it's a wonderful memorial. The waters of understanding, the waters of love, as we slowly transition from ego back to self-respect. So let's see if we can explore this dynamic, what that might look like inside. Sitting comfortably, preparing to watch a scene unfold, a movie unfold inside. With keen interest, I turn my attention inwards, because really, that's where quality of life, or lack thereof, happens. How I experience everything is shaped by the activity of my inner world, everything. And when the forces of ego, arrogance, lack of true self-respect are at work, in my inner world, my inner kingdom, I will know, because I will become very hyper reactive, very sensitive, easily hurt, easily insulted, and quite intolerant. Could be subtle or gross. And the first thing I want to do when I notice this beginning to happen is understand, not engage further, and not try to repress or oppress. Certainly not hand-to-hand combat. I want to move into a space, a very loving space of understanding. Ego or arrogance has been doing its job very well, exactly what I hired it for, to make me feel valuable. But now I know it's at a very high price. I've actually sold myself in order to feel more valuable. So I now wish to let ego go. But ego does not want to go. It's served me for so long. It feels it's done so much. It does not want to disappear. And so the moment that it starts to become more active, I recognize what's going on. I understand it's doing its job. And more than anything, I know it's very, very loyal in indicating to me that I've stepped away from self-respect. It is so loyal to me in indicating I've let myself go. Not ego, but myself. Such a loyal indicator, not an enemy at all. A perfect measure that I've stepped away from true value of the self. The moment I start to feel those signs that ego is in my inner house, I take it as that loyal indicator. Bring out that sense of understanding so I know what to do. Two things, two very important things. One is simply to watch that ego at work, not to engage, but just watch it. Whenever you watch anyone, they immediately become self-conscious. In other words, ego starts to lose its power. Just being the observer. No judgment, no violence, no disappointment in the self. Just understanding. Detached observer is the seat of understanding. The second thing I need to do is reconnect with that self-respect. It's the most precious gift that's given by God. This respect of the self. It's a spiritual gift. Nothing physical will ever feed my self-respect. That only feeds my ego. I need to remember I am a spiritual being, a soul. Go deeply into that experience. I am separate from all the labels and layers, skills and possessions. They're all temporary. They can never feed a true sense of value. But as a soul, I am of remarkable, imperishable value. I am a child of the most majestic being, the Supreme Soul. And so that is my spiritual DNA, my inherent qualities, defined by that very elevated, divine, eternal relationship. Even when I forget, even when I reject, I am still a soul, a child of the Supreme Soul. It is imperishable. And as a child of that one, I am endowed with all the values of the Spirit: peace, love, kindness, depth, maturity, integrity. So many attainments simply through that relationship. It takes a little time to experience this in a meaningful way. It's become a little rusty because I had developed such a deep relationship with ego. But this love for self, this keen interest to get myself back, and this deep disinterest in operating through ego, it will motivate me to restore that relationship and rebuild that self-respect. Observing ego, restoring self-respect. This is my pathway back to personal dignity. And when I respect myself, I'm able to do the one thing that makes me most happy in the world. I'm able to respect and celebrate others. No more competing or comparing or criticizing, just respecting others. Om Shanti.